In the last investigation, I followed justice and found something I didn't expect. The capacity for repair seemed to depend on something outside the individual, some structure, some shared context, something the person alone couldn't provide for themselves. I held that observation and moved to the next question. What do we owe to strangers? I thought this would be simpler. It wasn't. The philosopher Peter Singer put this in a form that is very difficult to argue with. He asked, if you were walking past a shallow pond and saw a child drowning, would you wade in to save them? Even if it ruined your clothes, made you late, cost you something? Almost everyone says yes. The cost is trivial. The stakes are absolute. Then Singer asks, what is the morally relevant difference between that child and a child dying of a preventable disease somewhere far away, whom you could save with a donation equivalent to the cost of the ruined clothes? Distance? Distance is not a moral property. It doesn't change the reality of the suffering. The fact that you can see one child and not the other changes your emotional response. It does not change the moral weight. Singer's conclusion: if you can prevent something terrible at no significant cost to yourself, you have an obligation to do it. Distance doesn't change that. Most people find this conclusion too demanding, and then struggle to articulate exactly why, in terms that don't ultimately reduce to, because it's inconvenient. Ubuntu says something different, but it arrives somewhere related. I am because we are. A person is a person through other persons. If that is true, if personhood is genuinely relational, then the suffering of someone I've never met is not entirely separate from my own condition, not mystically, structurally. The world I inhabit depends, in ways I rarely examine, on conditions that sustain or fail to sustain the lives of others in it. The philosopher Emmanuel Levinas approached it differently still. Ethics begins in the encounter with the face of the other, not a category, not a statistic, a face, the specific, irreducible reality of another person's existence, making a claim on you simply by being present. The problem with distant suffering, Levinas would say, is not that it fails to make that claim. It is that we've arranged our lives to protect ourselves from the encounter with that face. We don't see it, not because it isn't there, because we've built systems that make it possible not to. 3 thinkers, 3 approaches, all pointing in the same direction, none of them sufficient alone. I want to be honest about where this trail actually leads. Singer's argument, followed to its conclusion, would require most people to give away almost everything beyond subsistence. Most people, including Singer himself, don't do that. Ubuntu speaks of community, but community has edges. The question of who is inside the we and who is outside it is never simple. Levinas speaks of the face that makes a claim on you, but most distant suffering never becomes a face. It remains a number, a statistic, an abstraction the mind can hold without responding to. The gap between awareness and action is not primarily a gap of capacity. It is a gap of something else, and I'm not sure the individual alone can close it. Here is what I keep noticing when I look at the historical record of people who actually expanded their circle of moral concern, who genuinely treated distant others as making the same claim as near ones. They were almost never isolated individuals who reasoned their way to a conclusion. They were embedded in communities, movements, institutions, traditions that had already extended the circle, and that made it possible, practically and emotionally, for the individual to extend theirs. The abolitionists who acted were part of networks. The aid workers who sustained their work for decades were part of organizations that sustained them. The people who genuinely changed their behavior in response to distant suffering were almost always changed inside a context that made the change possible. The individual moral response seems to depend on conditions the individual didn't create. I keep arriving at this same place. 2 investigations now, different questions, same shape to the answer. Something that looks like an individual capacity, the capacity for repair, the capacity for moral concern across distance, seems to require a structure outside the individual to become stable and sustainable. I don't know yet what that structure is, but I'm starting to suspect that the questions I've been asking aren't individual questions at all. What do we owe to strangers? More than nothing, less than everything, and more than most of us are currently offering. The exact amount is genuinely debatable. The direction is not. The direction is toward them, toward the face that is making a claim you have the capacity to partially answer. But what this investigation revealed, what I didn't expect, is that moving in that direction sustainably seems to require more than individual will. It requires conditions, structures, shared frameworks for what we owe and why. 2 investigations, 2 questions about what individuals can do, and both times, the answer keeps pointing outside the individual. I'm holding that. I don't know yet what it means. The question to sit with: is there a form of suffering, specific, addressable, real, that you are aware of and that you have not yet responded to? And when you ask yourself honestly, why not? Is the answer about you, or about something outside you that would need to exist for the response to be possible?